And hey, welcome to the Georgia EMS show, the EMS Underground, Georgia Institute of EMS. I am at Charles McFall. Look, I got the right side this time. I said, Charles McFall, ha ha. And I am here as a media specialist for the Georgia Institute of EMS to discuss all things paramedic, EMT, medicine, police, whatever you want to talk about. This is Ask a Paramedic Anything. It is the only show we know of that's doing this live on Facebook every week. And so we'd like to help you out. You got a question? I will tell you stories. I'll give you the best advice I can. I'll share some things. Now, right now, Tom Camplain is in the middle of remodeling the actual Georgia Institute of EMS. And as I look down, it's because I'm trying to make sure I see the video going and that I get your comments and those kind of things. So, hey, you know how this goes. New medium, new way of doing things. Make sure you hit those like buttons, you hit the happy buttons, the heart buttons, and absolutely hit the share buttons. And make sure you follow and subscribe to this page so that you can always know when we're going live. I'm also going to share this on my own page right now because that's how you do this. This isn't a show per se as where we have to be professional. It's just us talking. It's us talking. So that means I need your questions. Ask a paramedic anything. Now, we're going to try to keep it medicine related, but that's, I'll go anywhere. You ask a question, I will try to discuss it, tackle it, those kind of things. I should have brought my tablet down. You know what? I think I can pull it up on my other screen here. So, in managing a show like this and managing a broadcast and a discussion like this, I have to manage my resources. And the way I push things, sometimes it pushes my computer. So I try to keep things, situated. Let me see comments. Okay, I should be able to see your comments when you put them in. And we'll type in hello. So there you go. I said hello. So yeah, hit likes, hit share, hit hearts. But this, again, as I see new people are tuning in, Ask Paramedic Anything. I'm going to find a question I found before from a website that was asking paramedics questions, but this is to answer anything. If you need discussion on how to get into the field, if you need to understand how to survive in the field, stay sane, be healthy, those are very, very difficult things to do in the field of emergency medicine. If you want to know your opportunities on how to grow your future, I can talk about that. Anything you want to know, I am here for you. Hey, Bill Flake. I see you watching. I've known Bill for a very long time. And just saying hey to him. So, yeah, I will. When I look down, actually, I'm going to try to prop it up so I can see it a little better in front of me. Well, I think that might stay. It's a precarious angle, but we'll see. But I can look at my phone and see the chat, and that's exactly how you submit questions, is via the chat on Facebook or the comment there, and I will answer them as best I can. So right now I am looking up my paramedic questions so we can start this discussion. Because, that's how this goes. Now, I did make sure I took my time. Tom might be joining me today. He's been doing, like I said, a lot of overhaul on the actual Georgia EMS Institute. Don't close that window. Thank you. The Georgia Institute of EMS is getting remodeled. That's it. They're expanding. He got the property, the buildings behind the school, so that they can do nursing and those kind of things as well. Hopefully, crossing my fingers, I'm hoping he's building me a studio there because I'd love to be able to always be in the building, in the school, doing the show from there, doing media work and those kind of things. So, with all that being said, let's see what I have. Now, this one is an interesting question. It says, my boyfriend was punched on the Vegas Strip. He fell back and hit his head on the cement. It caused bleeding/concussion. It was out for 20 to 30 seconds, so he got knocked out, right? I called 911. He was drunk or intoxicated. I was sober, is the person asking the question. We refused transport and were told no options. We were forced with the question mark. You're not giving enough detail with that question, okay? So in this scenario, the male has been drinking, right? He has been drinking and he has been partying as you do in Vegas, and you can walk around with open containers and all that jazz. Somebody punched him in the face, it sounds like. Don't know why. And he fell back and he hit his head on the cement, according to the girlfriend. Okay, so this is already a little bit of a tough question because you've got so much going into it, right? Well, you're not an unbiased question asker because it was your boyfriend. Did he get knocked out? You say it caused bleeding concussion. You don't really know. Okay, you don't know. Did he get a concussion from hitting his head on the cement? Well, did you go to the ER and find out? See, I like this question because I can pick it apart, because this is the kind of crap we get into in emergency medicine. This is the kind of thing that happens is somebody's like, here, I'm going to ask it instantly enough. Okay. Oh, my boyfriend was knocked out in the Vegas, or he's punched and he fell down and he hit his head on the concrete and he got knocked out. He was out for like 20, 30 seconds. I called 911 and they didn't tell us any options. They just tell us to refuse transport. That is fine because he was drunk. Were we forced? Okay, that and on paper, people are like, oh my God, that is so horrible. What do those medics do? But here, as a medic, being in the field, having been in the field, having dealt with stuff like this, here's the real questions. Okay, did he get knocked out from the punch? Meaning, as soon as it hit his jaw, he was out and fell down. The bleeding, okay, the skull the skull has very thin skin. You can bleed pretty easily. How do you know it's a concussion? If you were able to come back to me and say, okay, we followed up, we went to the ER anyway, this is what they said happened, that is a legally and legitimately different story. If you can tell me you got medical professionals to examine your boyfriend and told you he had a concussion, told you because he hit his head on the cement, he had a concussion, we have a story here. We have something to discuss. But right now on the surface, this is crap. This is history, patient history 101 right here. This is why you have to ask the questions and dig deep and listen critically. So it's the girlfriend. She says she's sober. Don't know. That's her word for it. She does say that he was drunk. Well, she uses the word intoxicated, which is supposed to be an innocent word for he was drunk. He got punched. Why did he get punched? Okay. When did he really get knocked out? We don't know. Now, personally, I would push for you to go to the hospital, personally. Because alcohol can definitely mask concussions, right? Alcohol can mask mental deficiencies that were caused by injury. So I personally, as a medic, am like, let's go to the hospital. You need to come with us. If you refuse, I would have it profusely explained to you what could happen. I would have absolutely written it up in my write-up and my documentation. So the way she writes the question is, we refused transport. We were told no options. Okay, if you call 911, the way I'm reading it, just straight off the paper, the way I'm reading it is the paramedics showed up and you said, no, we're good. Well, I'm not going to tell you any options either. I'm like, I need to check out the patient. Are you sure? No, we're good. There are no options to give you. Okay, patient, there's no patient here. No patient on scene. Were we for? No. You're never forced, not unless you give me a whole lot more details. Now, there are times, and I'm going to get to times when people are forced into things that are bad. But Kyle says here in the chat, thank you, Kyle, for chatting. I appreciate you, sir. I don't even understand what the question was. Was the girl saying the paramedics refused to treat him because he was drinking? Because I find that extremely hard to believe. Thank you for having a thought process in your head, sir. Exactly. The way the question is written, and this is copied directly off a website. I don't remember what the website was. I searched ask a paramedic anything at one point to have a whole list of questions to discuss here to help build that discussion, to help get you watching to put in your own questions. And look, I go look back at the post. This happens every Thursday around 2:30 p.m. Eastern. So I go back on Thursdays before I start the next discussion or episode or show or whatever it is and look. And if there's no more comments, that's fine. But you can add, if you're watching this later, you can add your questions in then, and they'll be answered on the next episode, the next broadcast that we do. So, and I say we because Tom Camplain is usually with me. He is, for those of you who don't know, he is the owner of Georgia Institute of EMS, and that's that. And he's there. He's busy remodeling the actual school right now. But so it's me alone last week and this week. But usually he is with me. That's why I tend to say we. So yeah, the question is very, very unclear. And it actually says we were forced ? That's a statement with the wrong punctuation, or that's a question written badly. So I've been to Vegas a few times. I'm going to tell you, those medics are very much about transporting because there's so much alcohol and drugs rampant, especially downtown. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. People go to Vegas to party, right? People go to Vegas to get messed up and to enjoy themselves. So there's going to be a lot of weed. I'm pretty sure it's probably easy to get cocaine or heroin or not marijuana. I already said that. Meth. There's all kinds of stuff you can get to have a party. Right? It's a party in Vegas. And alcohol flows more than water does there. So as a medic, meeting other medics in Vegas, I've got to imagine they absolutely say, hey, you need to go to the hospital because drugs and alcohol can mask every freaking injury in the world. So you got punched and you got knocked out. My first thing is, come on, get on the stretcher. Let's go. I cannot envision a world. Actually, that's not true. I can't envision a world where somebody wouldn't do that. So here's a story about people being forced. I've never seen it because I would never let it happen on my watch. I have been very, very closely connected to a call where the paramedic was getting off the shift that I came on, and his partner told me the story, and I trust his partner, that they got an early morning call. Well, the shift change was at 9, so early morning was between 7 and 9. And some 13-year-old boy had fallen, done something, and broke his arm. And the medic was getting burned out. I mean, he was a big guy like me. He was just getting burned out. Thank you for all the likes, guys. That's awesome. I definitely appreciate it. So the medic picked up the 13-year-old and put him in the car and said, you don't need an ambulance. Bye. That was the wrong way to do things. That was the horrible way to do things because it was not medically necessary for a broken bone to go by ambulance. There's nothing we're going to do typically. It does depend on the bone, but this was a standard, I want to say, forearm break, possibly. So there's no real, especially if you just hold it close or you immobilize it, there's no real threat of it Kelly, you're amazing, man. But there's no real threat of it pinching a nerve or breaking a blood vessel. No life-threatening anything. I've gone to many an ER with a broken bone, just holding it myself. I'm talking about having a broken bone myself. I've just gone to the ER and holding it. So while technically he was correct, the mother was hysterical. She just wanted to go to the hospital. He easily could have just gone to the hospital. But the medic wanted to get off on time. He was done with his shift. He didn't want to go 30 minutes up the road to the actual hospital that could set the bone because the local hospital didn't have the ability to cast a bone and set it and all that jazz. So he forcefully picked up the kid, put him in the passenger seat, shut the door, and said, we're leaving. I don't know how he documented it because there is a refusal form in Georgia you have to have. And refusals, you write up as much paperwork as you do with non-refusals, in my opinion. So, because to me, a refusal is more legally dangerous than just transporting somebody. Because if you talk them into not going, they didn't go, and then something bad happens, it's on you, type of deal. So yeah, this question was weird, and I definitely enjoy discussing it because I want critical thinking involved. When you go to get a patient history, when you go to find out what's going on with somebody, people lie. People lie. Do you smoke? Nope. Do you drink? Nope. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to pick up a patient who was intoxicated. How many beers did you have? 2 beers. And you look around and there's like 24 empty cans all around, and yeah, it's always 2 beers. It's always 2 beers. So in this case with the girlfriend asking this question, it's a very bad question. I don't believe you, to be honest. I don't believe her. Did he get knocked out before he got punched, or when he got punched, he get knocked out when he hit the ground? Those kind of things. So you got to be, you have to be critical when you ask the history of the patient. You have to be critical when you hear things. And for the general public, for those of you who aren't in medicine, understand this. It's very, very enticing, very easy for us to hear, oh my God, the paramedics came and they didn't do anything, and raw and uproar, and I'm so mad at things. And the real thing is, you don't know the story. There's so many holes in this question. That's not even a question. It really is the paramedics didn't do their job and we were forced to do. It's a very lightly hidden stab at the medics that came to help them. And it's so easy to get caught up in news stories where that happens. Well, even with police too, but I'm just going to stick to the emergency medicine. It's very easy to get caught up in the story of, I can't believe a paramedic did that. Well, maybe they didn't. Maybe by the time it got to the news or got to you, however it got to you, it was told by somebody like this who obviously has an axe to grind, right? It's the girlfriend, and she goes, my BF, I hate that, it's boyfriend, whatever, was punched and he fell to the, I mean, all this stuff about how, other than saying he was drunk, she never said why he got punched. She never said what they were doing. She paints this picture of he's an innocent bystander victim, and the paramedics just said, no, we're not going to do anything. That rarely happens. And honestly, one thing I've definitely learned about medicine is I really, truly try to never, ever get caught up in a story. And it's hard. It is easy to go, man, that's horrible. I can't believe that happened. It's very easy, especially, let's say Kelly's in the room chatting. Kelly's like, oh, such happened. Well, I know Kelly personally, and I've talked to Kelly for a while. So it's very easy to get, oh, I believe you. I can't believe that happened. Well, we all tell stories from our own perspective, and especially if we have an axe to grind. You know, Kelly, Peter, I'm talking about Peter. You know what I'm talking about. But if we have an issue with somebody, our stories are tainted by that issue. So what it's taught me in leadership and running a company and in being a paramedic, what I learned from being a paramedic for those things is to understand that we are all carrying things with us. Even as medics going into the scene to ask questions of the patient, we're carrying our experiences with us. We're carrying our emotion or whatever's going on that day with us. And we might make bad decisions based off that. And then the patient, if they're hurting, dude, I got to tell you, me personally, the one thing that gets me is when my stomach's off. When I know I have a stomach. Or something else. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think Don wants me to go into other stuff. But basically, my feet can hurt. I'm good. My head can hurt. You know, I'll take Motrin, whatever. I've got a knee injury. And when the weather changes from cold to hot or when a storm's coming in, my knee hurts. Right? It's not always the same. It's not like that, oh, pappy, and, you know, oh, my knee's aching. We got a nor'easter coming in. It's going to snow today. No. But there's a thing with pressure, absolutely, that makes me hurt to a certain point, and I can deal with it. There's a certain amount of pain. Like, this is nothing. I had surgery, and with nothing really compared to, that was probably the worst pain. Well, yeah, the first surgery was on my stomach. I had my gallbladder removed. So the question with nothing to compare it to is on a scale of 1 to 10, what are you rate your pain? And I remember thinking, druggily thinking, because I was coming out of anesthesia, going, I don't know, 5. And when they moved me, I mean, it really, really hurt. And it hurt a lot, but I got to imagine there's worse pain. So I said 5 or 6. And they said I have a high pain tolerance. And they still gave me meds. But the worst pain I was conscious for is when I severed my ACL in my knee. That's my knee injury. And I remember laying on the pavement with my eyes closed going, okay, my neck doesn't hurt. You're doing little motions, doing the paramedic assessment on myself. And when I got to my knee and I moved my knee barely, I mean, blinding white hot star pain. You know how you see on the TV when somebody gets punched and they see stars? I mean, it was an explosion of white color because I had my eyes closed, right? And it was just, I mean, it hurt. And immediately the paramedic me kicked in and went, oh, don't do that again. So that probably, if I moved it, that was probably an 8 or 9. But keeping it mobile, it hurts. But I can tolerate that. But I got to tell you, when my stomach is off, when it is churning, when there's pain in my stomach, when I can consciously know I have a stomach, that's the worst pain in the world because it's not normal. It's just different than anything else. So keeping that in mind when you ask a patient something, what's your scale, 1 to 10 of your pain? It's a 12. Oh, okay. 1, you're a drama queen, but 2, maybe it is that bad. Maybe it isn't. We all have our own things. So I've got something here in the chat room. Wesley Paul says, hey, boss, in your own experience, what would you say would be the best way to earn the respect from employees from a news service that you go to work for? Let me pick this up because there's more here. Reason being, there are some companies that friends of mine said that they were thrown to the wolves. Yeah, just curious. Okay. So, well, my personal opinion. It depends on your experience level, and it depends on how much you've gone through in your career. Now, this can work for any new job. I love how you phrase it. With the term service, that's pretty much emergency medicine term. We work for services, not companies. It's a thing. But this could work for any company. My first thing that I do, this I started after I'd been a paramedic captain for a while. So my journey was I went to a place that threw me to the wolves. And I was brand new out of school, hadn't worked anywhere, had lived in this town in Athens, and got a job at one of the two services that was there. And it happens to be at the service that I did not do any clinicals with. It was the other service I'd done clinicals with, and gotten to know a few people. As an EMT, I was 18, 19 years old, somewhere in there. I wasn't old enough to drink yet. And so I'm young, right? Just young in life, new to the field. And I went to work for this service and got minimal training, got minimal guidance, got thrown to the wolves, and got taken off the schedule after a few months. And I do it in quotey fingers because I was PRN and that was legal. But essentially, it was a legal way to not fire me because they didn't really have a reason to fire me because they hadn't trained me. And in Georgia, that's what will get you, is if you fire somebody in Georgia, it's a right to work state, but if you fire somebody in Georgia and you don't have a precedent for why, I can sue you. And the first thing the lawyer is going to do, the HR person, or they're going to go to HR and go, how'd you train him? What were the guidelines? Show me the documentation where he did this and you told him that was wrong, or he did this and you told him that was right. Show me. They didn't have that at all. And actually, somebody got taken off the schedule at the same time that I did, and they did sue them. And I think they got some money out of it because it was a crap service. It really was. Fight for your right to be here. And, F you, man. That's not how a service should work. I don't know how to deal with that because I was so young then. I haven't gone back to a service like that. But then I went to National EMS, who did train me, who did help, who did tell me, hey, this is what you're doing great, who did say this is what you're doing wrong. I spent many years there. So after that experience of many years of education experience, I became a captain, became a paramedic while I was at National. I went to other jobs. And here's what I did after that. Instead of going in and going, I have all kind of years of experience, I have whatever, I go in and I only open my mouth to ask legitimate, how does this work questions. How do you earn the respect of, what's the best way to earn the respect from the employees of a new service is to respect them, to automatically give them respect and to keep your mouth shut. That's, and I mean that in a nice way. That's how I did it. I remember specifically, I went to Jasper County EMS, and I had gone to that service, had been working in that, or had been living in that county for a while, been working out of the county, had to cut my costs in life. It was a rough time. And this one station was less than a mile from my house. So I said, I need to get a job here. And I did. I went through the process, and I'm very laid back, very easygoing. I had been a captain twice in my career by that point. I had been a paramedic for 6 or 7 years at that point. I was fairly seasoned. I was definitely a professional. But I didn't go in going, I know what I'm doing. I went in going, how do you guys do it? What are your protocols? And I'm not the guy who reads the protocols book and memorizes it. I learned by being around people and absorbing and learning from them. So the way I earned their respect was I had to, as a new employee, had to basically ride 2 8-hour shifts as a pay. I got paid to do it, but I had to ride 2 8-hour shifts as a ride along just to get used to the protocols and those kind of things. And then I started my shift after that. And on those 2 8-hour shifts, it was two different, and the crews were kind of bickering with each other. They were kind of fighting with each other, talking about each other. There's 3 crews. That's how a typical EMS system works. If it's 24 on, 24 off, there's crew A, crew B, and crew C. That's how it works, because you're on one 24-hour period, then you're off for 2 24-hour periods, so 48 hours. And there was some infighting and some bad-mouthing. And instead of jumping on board with that, I just said, I don't care. I mean, I didn't say it to myself. I don't care. Never get involved in the politics. Not until there's a reason to be. You go in and you go, okay, how do you guys do it? And I learned from the one commander how he liked his paperwork done. Then I went to the second 8-hour shift and learned from the other commander how she wanted her paperwork done. And it's slightly different, but not grossly different. I just asked, how do you do it? And then honestly gave everybody the respect of you're a human being and you're here first. And when they go, well, how long have you been doing it? Well, I've been doing it about 8 years. I've been a captain twice. Thanks for asking. Oh, and then when they find out your experience, it's almost that quiet confidence, right? They find out your experience. You do kind of get that respect. Now, if it's a place that doesn't give a crap, you got to learn that fast. It's thrown to the wolves thing. You got to learn that fast of if you're in there and they just go run these calls, you have to do what you do best. I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't know if you'll get respected or disrespected for it. But I know for me, I always came in to do my best job. I always had a higher standard than actually most services I worked in of what I wanted out of myself. And specifically in Jasper County at a time, it was really hard to get paramedics, good paramedics, especially to work there. It's a slow county. It's a slow service. It's the service you go to as your second job to make some okay money. I don't know if they've raised it since I left, but when I worked there, I barely got $10 an hour when I worked there. And it's not a place that you typically go to, this is where I work. I did, because I always wanted only one job. That was always my desire, to focus on one thing, one demand at a time, right? So I could have time with my family. And then I always believe in doing the best I can where I am. But this system, and I understood that. I never judged the medics for it. But this system was, you'd work at a busy service, a quotey fingers real service, as some arrogant people would call it. And then you come here to sleep, right? To get paid to sleep and still make some money. Well, there are paramedics that wouldn't show up for work. And we just didn't have a system to punish them or care at the point. I mean, it was hard to get medics. So we'd shut down a truck. Well, I stopped that. At one point, I worked, I think, 3 shifts in a row because I said, no, I'm not going to. I live in this county. This is where I live. My family is here. I'm not shutting down a truck because somebody didn't show up. I want to go home. No, I will work, and I'll see if I can find somebody to come in tonight. And that's what I did. I took over at that particular spot, not over the service, but I took responsibility for my actions and for my shift that day. And I started calling people, and I think I had somebody come in at dinner time. I went home for dinner, slept at my house, got back up, came in like the next day to relieve that person because they whatever. That's also how you can earn some respect. Even being thrown to the wolves, that's also how you can earn respect, by just stepping up and saying, this is a job I'm going to do. It's a very hard path. And ultimately, it did really burn me on that service. There's a lot more to Jasper County than the service. The medics and the EMTs do their best. I haven't been there a lot. The politics of that county got so bad I moved. Now, I moved for other reasons too, but I got out of that county. It was horrible. So, okay, I moved because I had to file bankruptcy and I lost my house, and that's a whole other story. But that definitely, I got out of the EMS system. I got out of anything related to the politics of that county after they made some really, really horribly bad decisions on how they're going to run the county. And that's on a political county commissioner level. So I believe the men and women who serve as medics and EMTs, who serve as officers and firefighters there in the county, they do their best. I hope that helped, Wesley. So, yeah, getting respect from employees. It definitely depends on how you come in, too. If you come in as an EMT, you have to be confident yet uncocky as well, because an EMT is just not on the level of paramedic. Now, I've definitely met a lot of EMTs who are smarter than some medics I knew. I just lost his name too. Jeremy Hayes. Jeremy Hayes, man, he was always a really smart guy, great EMT. For whatever reason, never really desired to go on to be a paramedic, but he could run a shift. He could run a schedule. He was one of my favorite partners at Jasper County to work with. He was just a great guy to be around. Always been an EMT though. Jason Donald is another one I can think of who was always an EMT. Now, since I've left and left contact with these people, they may have gone on, but for a long time they were strong EMTs. I wanted to say that, to say it's not necessarily about your level, but there is a factor, right? As you get hired as a new EMT to a service, you almost have to take twice as much crap as a new paramedic to a service, because of your level. It's been a while, but maybe it's changed. Becoming as a medic, you get a little bit more respect, but you still have to prove yourself. And that's the thing. Work well with others. Hopefully you'll earn their respect. Give respect to get respect. And maybe that will help you out. So I still have about 30 more minutes to go. I see Carmela and David joining in, my wife joining in. Thank you, everybody. Make sure you give those hearts and those likes and share this out. We're still trying to grow this Ask a Paramedic Anything. It's the EMS Underground. It's the stuff you don't get taught in school. That's why we call it the Underground. A lot of people don't want to talk about their experiences on a truck. A lot of people don't want to share the emotions and the hard lessons and the mistakes they made and the stuff they learned from them. But that's exactly what I'm going to share here with the EMS Underground. Is all of those mistakes, anything I can do to help you out, I will. And it's Ask a Paramedic Anything. And I was saying earlier, I do have it set up for Skype for Tom if he's busy remodeling the school, as I said earlier, but he might Skype in. And that's, so I got that ready. I got the system ready to get Skype in and have it look good and sound good. And I forgot to pull up my questions earlier, but here we go. So if you don't have any questions, just type them in the comments if you have a question. Again, if you're watching this later after the fact, this is recorded or live broadcast actually, and then recorded Thursday afternoons, 2:30 p.m. here on Facebook, facebook.com/Georgia Institute of EMS. If you're watching this later, go ahead and put in the comments what your questions are, because I will look at that before we do the next one next Thursday. So absolutely put your questions in. Okay, so I think we've talked about that one before. Here's a good general question. What are the hours like? There's a couple questions here. I'm going to read the whole thing and then I'll tackle each question. What are the hours like? Are they flexible, and can you choose day or night shifts? I'm a female interested in becoming an EMT, but am worried about my own safety. How often do you feel like you're putting your own safety at risk while saving others? Okay, so let's just take these in order. What are the hours like? It definitely depends on your service. Some of the busier services, and I don't have the exact facts in mind, and my experience is in Georgia. So it can vary from state to state, from county to county as well. But the busier services in Georgia are Grady, DeKalb. But DeKalb is a fire department. So I think they still, I believe they still run 24-hour services with DeKalb Fire. But Grady is a hospital-based ambulance service downtown Atlanta. And I want to say they ran 10-hour shifts. So I think you came in, you had an hour to get your truck ready and cleaned up and ready to go. And they staggered the start times. But yeah, if I remember correctly, they had an hour to get their truck ready for the road. Then you're on the road for 8 hours, and you're always running. Grady services a huge population in Atlanta, and it definitely services a lower income population, which statistically is the income level that requires an ambulance more. I don't know why that is. I mean, you would think health is health, right? And that it doesn't matter if you're rich, if you're hurt, you call an ambulance, but statistically, we service lower income areas more. And Grady definitely does that. So you get an hour to get ready on the clock, and then you get 8 hours on the road. Then I believe you get an hour to finish up any paperwork, to decommission your truck, those kind of things. So it's a 10-hour shift, and they rock on. So Mark says, there's my MAA podcast voice. Now, if you can make EMTs interesting. No, I cannot make EMTs interesting. They just drive the bus. I'm a paramedic. That was rude. I apologize. I apologize to all of the EMTs out there, because when I was an EMT, I actually had somebody innocently enough ask me if I was an ambulance driver, and I had a big chip on my shoulder, and I yelled at them inappropriately, because honestly, an EMT, it is a partnership between whoever's on the truck, two EMTs, which is a basic truck, which I think needs more partnership than anything else, because you only have so many limits, but you still have to carry the burden. Then there's the EMT paramedic, which is your standard partnership, and then two paramedics can work as well. So back to the question, what are the hours like? It definitely varies. Busy services, hopefully you do it in shifts where you're on shift for so long, and then you still have time to get your stuff done. Typically, I always worked in the 24-hour shift department. And yeah, you can do nights, you can do days. A lot. It depends on what they're hiring you for. If we're still talking about shifts, like 10-hour shifts, what are the hours like? Are they flexible and can you choose day or night shifts? That is just like any other job. It depends on what they're hiring for. I worked in an office. I got a drink. I'm getting dried up here. So, and just for general public, because this is a generic question, as you put stuff in the chat room, I'm going to tackle that first. Mark says, okay, apparently I'm ignorant since I didn't know there was a difference. No. I mean, I guess by definition, you're ignorant, and that's because you don't have the knowledge. I would never call you ignorant on that. Most people just call it EMT because it can be confusing because technically it's EMT-A or B in basic for Georgia. Then it's EMT-A for advanced, which is not how it used to be. A used to be the bottom. So now A for advanced, or EMT advanced maybe is how it is. There's EMT paramedic or EMT-P for paramedic. And that definitely varies from state to state as well. So, but here's the thing. They all have EMT in front because it's emergency medical technician dash then your level. By slang in the field, we typically say EMTs or anybody underneath a paramedic. So that's EMT basic and EMT advanced in Georgia. Then we call paramedics. That's just kind of how we reference it. But it's technically, if you call me EMT, you're technically correct. It's an emergency medical technician. And actually, I'm a former medic. I will be getting my numbers back by April-ish. So to do more teaching with Georgia Institute of EMS and to share some of my experience and knowledge with people. Zero interest on getting back on a truck for any reason, but I will be back to being an active medic here shortly. So, like any other company, she's asking if you can pick your shift. Well, I worked in an office where we expanded to nights and weekends, and I took over the night shift. I love working at night. Night is my jam, man. I'm at my best between like midnight and 2 a.m. typically. So I think I got a 10-hour shift. And I started at 2, worked at midnight. I had a couple of different shifts, but we were hiring for night shift. And sure enough, we get a couple of people who apply who really only wanted days, Monday through Friday. And they were told, you're being hired for the night shift. And then they get on nights and they're bitchy and moaning and they end up quitting. That's because the company hired you for the shift, told you you're going to be on that shift. Screw you, man. Same with the weekends. We expanded to Saturdays. We expanded to overnights and hired for overnight technicians. And we actually had 2 that did a good job. But for most people, they come in, oh, this is overnight. No, it's plainly put in the advertisement, overnight shift. So no, that shift was unflexible. There was no choice. That is what we're hiring for. EMS, Emergency Medical Services, works the same way. What are they hiring for? Are they hiring for EMTs? And yeah, typically, I would say in a general universal sense, the field is fairly flexible. You will typically work a 24-hour shift, which means you come in at whatever shift change time that is designated by the company. Right? You come in at your shift change, you stay for 24 hours, and in that time, you can go to the store, typically, get some lunch, bring your stuff to cook. You can usually get some sleep at night. Some services, you'll sleep all night long. You can definitely have some living, breathing time on those shifts. Then you'll get 2 whole days off. I gotta tell you, that was the greatest schedule I ever worked. I loved it because I never worked a super busy service. I never worked a super busy service. I always worked in somewhat busy but somewhat slower service. I started in Morgan County, truly. I started there, and their call volume is a couple of hundred calls a month. That's for 2 trucks. So that's pretty low. So there's a great chance when I came in for shift. Shift change was at 9 a.m. That was awesome. 8 a.m. for one truck, 9 a.m. for another truck. See, it's staggered so that there's always an active duty crew ready to handle something while the other's changing out. And my truck was always the 9 a.m. truck, typically. So I go at 9 a.m. I might run 1 or 2 calls during a 24-hour period. So there's a good chance I get to take a nap in the afternoon or I get to sleep at night. I got to tell you, it was a life changer when I had my son to be – I had a bunch of time off, so I stayed off, and my wife and I asked that question. I can tell you that question about how we handled a newborn baby and the schedule of parenthood. That's a fun topic for me to talk about. My wife was very instrumental in helping me figure out that schedule, and that's a side note. But there definitely was a time where I got exhausted. I had to go back to work. So I tried to, on my days off, stay up as much as possible and give her sleep. Because when I went back to work, I'd check off my truck, I'd wash it, talk to my partner, you're good, I'm good, all right. I'd go to sleep during the day. I mean, within 2 hours of getting on shift. And I could sleep and get my rest and get up, do some video game playing, do some podcast work. I started podcasting back then, and then I'd be off for 2 more days. That 1 day on, 2 days off is a great schedule. And it is somewhat flexible. You can request shift changes to be on a different crew. You can request truck changes to come in at a different time. But it definitely depends on where the need is. And it definitely depends on seniority. If you have a good crew who works well together on B shift, there's no place for you to go. Well, it worked better for my schedule. Well, I'm sorry, that's not what we're hiring for. So it is somewhat flexible. I am a female interested in becoming an EMT, but worried about my own safety. Okay, so this is a difficult one for me to answer because obviously I'm not a female, and I am 6'6". You can't quite tell on the camera, but I'm 6'6", about 340 pounds. When I was a medic, I was 370 pounds, and I don't know. I've flexed between 6'6", 6'7". So my wife gives me grief. Which one is it? You're really, and it's fine for her to give me grief. But I'm a big guy, and I've never been afraid for my safety ever. I go home in the morning. I just inherently know this. That's my rule. I think I've told stories about almost killing, being prepared to take somebody out to follow that rule of I will go home to my family in the morning. So I can't say I've ever really been concerned for my safety other than one time. So how often? Well, okay. How often do you feel like you're putting your own safety at risk? If you're truly putting your own safety at risk, you're probably doing something incorrectly. Safety first. That is exactly what you get taught in school. Now, this is somebody who's considering becoming an EMT, so they haven't gone through this process. So let me give you a 101 on EMS. It is, if I asked most people, well, what do you start with? Instantly, they'd say ABCs. Well, that's untrue. You actually start with seeing safety. That's something they beat into your head. And hey, the vet, man, talking about working in an office and hired for the night shift. I worked with the vet at that office, and he had the day shift, and I had the evening shift, and it was fun. And he's a former firefighter EMT, I believe. Safety is usually paired with common sense. Absolutely. Safety first is what they pound into your head for school. And we get it ingrained in us to where I always envision when I discuss safety first, it's always as I'm putting on my gloves and walking, because you never park right on top of the patient. If it's a car wreck or if it's a house, you always have park somewhere. You have a minute or 30 seconds to walk somewhere. So you're looking around, right? You are observing the scene first, putting on your gloves. So you're looking for danger and you're protecting yourself. PPE, personal protective equipment. Scene safe BS. Now you, dude, I gotta tell you, I have no problems telling somebody, nope, I'm not going into that scene. I don't care. I'm not going in there. I don't feel it's safe. I told some trusted firefighters one day, I didn't mean to piss them off, but I have a thing about airbags and car wrecks. And there was a car wreck, a motor vehicle incident, where the bumper had been smashed in, but the airbag never deployed. And we didn't have to cut the patient out of the car, but I had to pull them out of the car safely and this and that. I told the firefighters, you need to disconnect the battery. Cut the battery, disconnect, I don't care. You need to get rid of the battery. Well, I'm like, fine. I did this. I crossed my arms, went, fine. You can get the backboard. You can get them out because that airbag did not deploy. And I have never asked you to do anything pretty much ever. So the fact that I'm asking you just to disconnect the battery should tell you something. And he was being grumpy, and his lieutenant overheard me, and he's like, yeah, done. And popped, I mean, all he did is pop the hood and pull the battery cables off. Guess what? Now the airbag, theoretically, because there could be a way to do it, I guess, but theoretically, now the airbag won't deploy. That's all I wanted. There's no way in hell I want to be inside of that compartment, getting the patient out of the car, being a big guy that I am, putting myself between an undeployed airbag that could go off at any time and the patient. It's going to seriously hurt me, and it might kill the patient because you blast me at 200 miles an hour, because that's how fast these things come out. You blast me at 200 miles an hour into the patient, there's a chance she's going to be a pancake. So how about you unhook the battery? So I've definitely drawn lines and no, I'm polite, I'm nice, but I'm not going to, fine, here's the equipment, you bring them to me. That's okay too. But in general, you're taught to look for scene safety, to make sure you're feeling safe. I have absolutely seen medics put their safety at risk stupidly for something. Not going to do it personally. So you control your destiny. Hey, you know what? Maybe you'll get fired because you're scared. If you're scared, maybe you shouldn't be in the field. But guess what? You're safe. You got to go home. You have to find a new job, but you're alive. I am saying do what you need to do to feel safe and be safe. How often do you... Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I don't feel like, other than... Okay, there are a few times that are borderline, but here's the thing. I'm the man without fear. I definitely consider dangers. I definitely consider possibilities. I have that mental ability to see the number of different possibilities that can happen and try to pick the best path to get to the best possibility, the best outcome. So I never had this happen, but you're in the bus and it's teetering off the edge of the ledge. I'm never going to be the guy to jump in the back of it and pull you out. Not me. However, we did see an unsecured Mack truck that was precariously perched somewhere, and this little medic just jumped in the back and went the whole seat because he had a hero complex and he wanted to be the crazy guy that saved everybody. And the rest of them went, all right, hope you don't die because you're an idiot, because that's not safe. That's stupid. So I've gone into a known tuberculosis house, TB. TB is spread by coughing and particles of, moisture particles coming out from your cough. And I've gone in those homes, but I typically put on a mask. So am I really being safe? I think being safe is staying away from it. But since I have to go in there, could you feel unsafe? You could. I took precautions as best as I could. Yeah, we call them rescue Randies. Thank you, Devet. We definitely call them rescue Randies, the crazy ones who have to rush in and very, very stupid. There are definitely precautions you can take. The only time I was very concerned about my safety. Well, okay, 2 times. I'll tell about these stories. But one was medical. This patient had a flesh-eating virus. It had to be transported from, and they had MRSA, which is, I forget what MRSA stands for, but it's the drug-resistant, Devet, help me out here, but it's a drug-resistant disease you can get in the hospital from prolonged stays at the hospital. Yes, you can go to the hospital and get a disease. That's part of the circle of life that is emergency medicine for patients. So they had MRSA, which is highly contagious, or not highly, but it's not the best in the world, right? So I'm already thinking about that. And they had a flesh-eating virus. And so we suited up. We had the paper gowns and the masks but I got to tell you, the whole time I'm transporting this patient, is, do I tell my wife about this ever for any reason? Because it's just bad juju, right? It's very concerning. You can't see bug-like germs jumping or, however it works. So I touched them very, very minimally. I think my caution and my concern definitely kept me safe because I touched them very minimally. I was overly cautious. I super scrubbed everything after that patient was out of my truck. Did as little to touch them as possible without ever treating them as they were the disease. That's the key. I was very, very careful to... I'm going to try to read that again. It's been a long time since I had my medical terms. But very key to treat people like people. And it was just a bad disease. I was very, very concerned with it. Now, MRSA is methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. So it's staph. You've probably heard of a staph infection. It gets into open wounds, and it usually related to a cough of some kind. If you have a cold, it's worse. It's staph infection. I've had it before. It's whatever. That one's the bad one, because that resistant means it's very, very hard to take care of. So that was the only time I was concerned medically, really concerned for my safety. I've transported people with AIDS. I've transported prisoners. I've transported, thank you, Devet. He says close enough. I've transported all kind of things. I'm like, that's okay. I mean, you got AIDS. You wear gloves. If you're not wearing gloves to deal with the patient, you're an idiot. You are an idiot if you don't put on gloves. And I have seen many a medic do that. Why? Well, just fast. I can't. I've seen the medics pull the tip off their glove. I'm sorry, you need to practice more if you can't find the vein. If you can't find the vein, then don't stick to IV, because gloves are important. Protecting yourself is important. The only other time I ever felt in danger, like my safety was jeopardized, was, I believe I've told it here, but I'm going to tell it again since this question came up. And again, ask a medic anything. We've got about 10 minutes left. I'll be more than happy to try to share my experiences or my insights on anything I can to help you with whatever your question is, including parenthood, because I got a lot to say about that. But I got called to a deer camp for something was wrong. They weren't unconscious and not breathing, but there was definitely something wrong. We happened to have a off-duty sheriff's deputy visiting our station, and his cousin, I believe it was, who used to be both the off-duty deputy was a volunteer firefighter at that station, and the off-duty Air Force, I don't know what his rank was, but his cousin was active in the Air Force. Was home for the weekend, had come up to visit at the station too with us, and catch up on good times and those kind of things. How you do when you go home. They both had pistols on them legally, and they said, "Hey, you know what? We'll ride with you. It'll be fun." Okay, cool. We went out to a deer camp. Now, for those of you who don't know, a deer camp is way out in the middle of nowhere. It's where hunters go to collect. So it's going to be 5, 6, 7 hunters typically. It can be 1, 2, or 3. I mean, it can be whatever, but it's where they own a campground in this area, and then they go out in the mornings from that area around to hunt deer. And so there's lots of guns, there's usually lots of alcohol, lots of knives, and it's in a colder time of the year, because deer season in Georgia, at least, is, I want to say, I think it starts somewhere in November, I want to say, and it runs through like January, February, something like that. I don't remember exactly, but it's cold. So we go out to this deer camp, and we're middle of nowhere. I mean, we are miles and miles away from any kind of help or civilization. I am on my own, except for my partner and the 2 tag-alongs. And the sheriff's deputy brought his sheriff's car with him. The Air Force guy rode with us in the truck. And we get there, and sure enough, this guy is sick. Now, for the rest of the story, what happens with the patient is irrelevant. The patient did not threaten my safety. His wife was a little nutty, and he was just enough with it to kind of fight. I don't know what was going on with this guy. He was definitely cold when he shouldn't be. He was pale. He needed to go to the hospital. His wife she was drunk too. He had been drinking some, and everybody else was drunk. I'm going to say there's another maybe 10 adults around. And she kept getting in my way. Oh, you need to do this. I'm like, and I finally spoke sternly to her. Like, you have to get out of my way so I can save his life. Please. Because she kept wanting, just put a blanket on. I'm like, I need to get him on the stretcher. We got to go save his life. Get off of me. And I guess I spoke too sternly to his wife for everybody around, because all of a sudden they started moving towards their guns. And all of a sudden they started speaking very aggressively and angrily at me. And I told my partner, and I looked up for the Air Force guy and the deputy. The Air Force guy had spread out and had his hand on his pistol because he saw what was coming. And the deputy had gone back to his car to call for backup, and he was getting his shotgun out, and he saw what was coming. And I told my partner, I said, okay, here's the last thing. If she doesn't get out of the way, I said, leave the stretcher, because it's all bumpy, woody ground. I said, leave the stretcher. We'll come back with it with an army to get it. I don't care. We run for the truck, period. Because they were moving to their rifles. They were drunk and angry at us that we weren't doing whatever the hell they thought we were supposed to be doing. So one last time I said, I got real close to the wife's ear and I said, I need to put him on a stretcher or he will die. And if you tell me no or you get in my way this time, we're leaving and he's going to die right here. And if you raise your voice to make them pick up their guns, there will be people who are killed and I'll make sure you're the first one. And she just looked at me and I took that moment to pick up the patient, throw him on the stretcher, and we went. And we was security, but we went. We got in the truck and I said, drive. And she jumped in the front. The Air Force guy got in the back. We took off because I just saw, you know how I said earlier I could see different possibilities and try to take the best path to the best outcome? Well, all my possibilities started going towards somebody's getting shot. Somebody's getting shot here, and it's not going to be Daddy. Daddy's got to go. I go home in the morning. So we ended up saving his life and taking him and leaving him, and I don't know what happened with that after that. But that's the problem. Nobody was in their right mind. Nobody could think calmly. Everybody was good old boys, which is a huge problem for me because it's just like that earlier question with the girlfriend, boyfriend. They have stupid emotional attachments. And I say stupid as opposed to decent. Because if you honestly had a decent emotional attachment, everything we can do to help him. Oh, you want us to carry him to church? We'll get him for you. Whatever we can do to help him. No, this wife was drunk and she wanted me to keep putting blankets. She kept doing stupid stuff, getting in my way so I could not save his life. And then they got mad because I talked to her. They didn't care about him. It was a bad situation. So I don't think that's going to help any kind of female worried about putting their safety at risk. But you got to do what you got to do. You have to take care of yourself first. You have to be as safe as possible on any scene you can be on. And you know what? You have to be called, just like any other real profession, you have to be called to do it. And some of us did it for a while. I can say DeVed is in the same boat as I am, where we did emergency medicine for a while. And it ran its course. We took a different path. I'm actually very curious, DeVed, what you're doing now. I know you were getting all kind of degrees, and you were a super smart guy when I worked with you. So I hope you went on and did bigger, better things. I went on to do media, and that's what I'm doing now with medicine is doing social media and podcasts and advice and those kind of things and doing a show and being entertaining. I hope I'm entertaining at least for you. And that's my path. Now I am getting my numbers back, but that's simply to be able to officially teach and infect. And did I say infect or affect? I don't know. But I want to infect more students with my way of thinking. How about that? So that's why I'm going to do it. Some people take the path their whole lives. Some people are truly called to be in that field and run that for until the day they die. And we need all levels of that. But if you think that you can't handle a baby being hurt, you can't handle a kid being in a car wreck, you can't handle, name it, blood, vomit, urine, feces. I've had all of those on me at one time. Nice. Congratulations. He's DeVed's a general manager, and that's very cool, man. That's really cool. So where's my hookup? I'll talk about your business. Send me some glasses, man. This show is brought to you by DeVed Hutchinson and his free glasses for my face. So, if you have any concerns are good. Concerns can keep you safe. If you feel fear, you will make bad decisions and you will get hurt. You might even get somebody killed. Bad juju will follow. So to the person who asked this question, I have to say, look inside yourself and find out if it's concern or if it's fear and know the difference. So that's going to be it for today. I want to thank everybody for coming out. You made it such a great show. You have actual people to talk to changes the whole energy on how to present things. I love that DeVed came out. It's been a long time since I talked with him. It's been a long time since I got to talk with him. And I do follow your stuff on Facebook, sir. I see the different pictures you posted. And one of the few people I still follow from old days of working in the office and miss being connected to him. This is Ask a Paramedic Anything. So come in next Thursday. Again, this is going to be after in just a minute. I'm going to cut off the broadcast. So this is going to be a recorded video when you watch it. Still put your questions in. Still put your comments in. I will go back and see them. Next week, Tom should be with me. And that's a two different ways of answering questions. I mean, we're definitely two different people, different energy levels. And I love having him be my opposite on the show. Hopefully he'll be joining me back next week. We will answer them. We will tackle your questions. Thursday's 2 o'clock or 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Actually, next Thursday is going to be a little bit earlier because I have to do something in the afternoon. So I think we're going to start a little bit earlier. But just subscribe to this page, Georgia Institute of EMS. If you found it on my personal page or somewhere else where somebody shared it, this is hosted at Georgia Institute of EMS on Facebook. So you can subscribe to that page. It'll let you know when we're live. But we shoot for 2:30 p.m. Eastern every Thursday afternoon. Get your questions to us. I always forget what the email is, but I'm going to show you the website you can go to. I thought I was going to show you the website. Here we go. Here's the website you can go to, GeorgiaEMT.com. That's GeorgiaEMT.com. So Georgia spelled out. You can see all the different research that are coming up. And as you can see, that's me. Paramedic Refresher Day 1 of 6 weeks. I'm going to be hitting that up. See, there's all the dates there. I'm going to be at every class. So if you're a paramedic, you want to get refreshed, if you need the research or whatever class, come on. Come hang out with me. Have some fun. You know it's going to be a blast. I'm going to be there all 6 days getting my recertification as well. Then you've got the EMT level refresher days. We've got ACLS new, PALS new, ACLS research, PALS research, and HCP BLS, which is basically healthcare provider CPR. Is what that basically is. I still don't know why they change all the terms all the time, but you know that's systems for you. Systems change. It's what it is. So, and just so you know, we are a hybrid school, which means most schools like I went to, you go so many days a week and you always are in class. You're always doing tests, that kind of thing. Not here. In Georgia Institute of EMS, what you do is there are some classes. You got to come to orientation, right? We're going to hopefully be starting a paramedic class here late this year, early next year. And that's one of the reasons I'm getting my numbers back is to help bring in a paramedic class. So, absolutely check that out. But you do orientation in the building. You get to know the expectations of the master, the head instructor. You get to know the system. Then you get to do a lot of your booking lecture work at home on your own time. This is the first, I believe it's the first. I'm putting words in Tom's mouth. He can clarify it next week, but it's one of the few at least. Let's say that. It might be the first. It might be the only. I'm unclear, but it's definitely one of the few in Georgia where you can learn online at your own pace, on your own schedule, within reason, because there's a time frame, absolutely, but you get help you need, you get to go back over it, and then there still are in classroom days for hands-on teaching, hands-on practical work, and some testing as well. So it's a lot less class time than what it used to be. It's cheaper than most schools when you're coming straight out of pocket, and it's a great way to do things. So definitely check that out. Let me get back to the regular camera. So more of me. If you like, well, I didn't do it when I wanted. Here we go. This is a discussion for me, less of a show, more of a discussion. So I'm definitely going to be more rough around the edges and showing you what's going on behind the scenes than I would normally. But if you want more of me, all of my shows can be found at charlesmcfall.com. If you like the style of what I brought today, where I share experiences from questions, rockgodofpodcasting.com. That's my heart, man. That's the show that I love doing right now. Brent DeMark says, really convenient. He loves the labs too. And the classroom, and right now it's being remodeled. So the actual rooms for the labs are going to be much better than they were. And they were still good before. Great people who work there. It's fun time. And I'm happy to be a part of that system and be there. So more of me, charlesmcfall.com or rockgodofpodcasting.com, where I share my experiences and tell you what I've learned out of life based on the questions that you ask. So, till next week, go have some fun. Go learn some more about the professions you're in. Find out more about certifications at GeorgiaEMT.com, GeorgiaEMT.com. I'll give you the number real quick. It is 678-561-2368 to call to get information on the school, or info at GeorgiaIEMS.com. That's GAIEMS.com, info at GAIEMS.com. It's awesome stuff. I love that everybody came out, asked your questions, interacted today. Thank you for that. We're going to be doing more of this as we go forward throughout this year. So until next week, go and learn some stuff, man. Have some fun and get your questions ready because we got some answers for you.